stand-up paddleboarding because you were a lunatic from a different sport altogether, and you saw paddleboarding coming up, and you're like, you know something, man, I could do the crazy stuff that I do in my other sports on a paddleboard. And I mean, you've taken that to a crazy level. I mean, I'm seeing the stuff you're doing now, and it's like, if I had to put on shoulder pads and a helmet to go paddleboarding, I don't know. But I mean, you do it on a daily basis. It's kind of groovy.
Well, this is just a natural coming from the whitewater kayak scene and trying some easier stuff, you know, and you learn how to get back to your board quickly, get back on, and you learn fast. It's not where you're getting it easy, but it is a lot of fun. Feels good when you start really catching eddies and little waves on the river. There's a lot of potential there with the inflatable stand-up paddle boards now. They're a lot more rigid. They take the bumps and bruises that the rocks are going to deliver.
Absolutely. And you know, I know, including myself, there's a lot of cats out there who've been doing paddleboarding for a long time but haven't like jumped over to that side yet. What would you suggest doing as far as like making baby steps to get to that point of like safety and not going out there and completely tweaking yourself? Because I know you've chimed in a lot of times seeing photos and saying, you know something, bro, that's really not a smart thing what you're doing. So what would you say? I mean, there's people out there listening right now going, you know, man, I'm thinking about getting an inflatable and pulling a Gavir. So what would you say?
Well, the first thing is the three basic necessities for being out on any river. Is a good pair of footwear, a PFD, and a helmet.
Right.
So those are going to be your three basic things. There's a lot of questions come in about the leash.
Yeah, what's the gig with that? Because, I mean, I've gotten stuck around a rock when we did the Klamath River mouth, and that was a humbling experience.
Yeah, and it can sneak up on you really quick. It's very dangerous to wear a leash as you would on a surfboard. So you're never putting your leash around your ankle or someplace that you might not be able to reach if you were held underwater.
Right.
So we connect our leashes to a waist belt or a releasable system that's like integrated into our whitewater kayak PFDs. So
and quick release, like a cord, like you can pull that pin really quick and just get out of it.
It's actually the size of like a golf ball, and you just pull that. It releases you from the leash and allows you to swim free from your board if you need to. Very seldom does it happen, but it is good to have. And then on top of that, we have it tied onto a string that isn't as strong as maybe a stock surf leash plug string. So even if you weren't able to grab and release it, that string's gonna break.
Gotcha.
Another thing to do is with the Velcro leashes that we see now that are very popular, where you actually have overlapping layers, a sandwich of Velcro. You put that Velcro in only an inch or so.
Gotcha.
And that allows you to actually test it where you can pull it apart. And once that becomes to a point to where you can just barely pull it apart with all of your strength, that's going to be a good initial setting for getting out there. And it'll allow that board, if it gets caught or hung up or the leash or anything, it's going to actually just pull apart on its own. So that's really kind of the two basic main systems. You can make any leash work.
Right.
With a releasable belt that you might fashion out of like a small Fastex buckle.
Okay.
No bigger than 1 inch, and then that way you could push that buckle if you needed to.
Gotcha.
You need to be able to have it handy so that you can release it. But, you know, having the leash on your board is important because it's easy to get separated from your board.
Totally.
And that can cause a lot of undue swimming and unneeded exposure to the river. So I like the leash personally. Not everyone, you know, is fully in my court on this one, but, you know, I think it's safer with a releasable system that's tested and like approved by a whitewater professional.
There you go.
If you aren't one yourself.
Gotcha. Okay, now like technique now, like, you know, standard flat water, you know, you're kind of like parallel stance, wide stance, kind of. What would you say as far as like little minutia to think about when you're out there in, you know, in moving water?
Well, it's a lot of it is going through the rapids are the main skills you're going to need to acquire, and catching eddies, going in and out of eddies, which are going to allow you to kind of take a break in those eddies and work your way downstream slowly, rather than just going with the river out of control and backwards and swimming half the way. You want to use those eddies. Those are like your safe spots to go to and from. They're also spots where you might be able to catch a wave, or you're actually pointed upstream to make what's called a ferry maneuver to the other side of the river.
Gotcha.
Which might be more fun or have something more interesting. And
And directional control, because I remember when Ronnie and I first started powering out down the river, it was like we were trying to attempt very surf style kind of directional control, and we found with a river moving, that's not necessarily the best kind of technique. So, what would you advise as far as like how to approach to really like make your board pivot and like really navigate rocky areas?
Well, I think the most important skill to have outside of the basic skills on flat water, which you always want to develop first,
For sure.
so you have a solid foundation, is being able to edge the board with your feet.
Gotcha.
And if you can do that standing in your parallel stance, well, more power to you. But you're still going to be challenged by some forward to back bucking. So what we do is we get into more of a surf stance,
Right.
or a staggered stance, you might call it. So we've got a foot on each rail, but also our feet are in either a regular or a goofy stance.
Right.
As opposed to maybe right down the middle of the board, which you might utilize for more of a surfing stance.
Exactly.
This is more of a staggered whitewater stance.
Okay.
And that allows you to really rail the boards and going in and out of eddies and navigating waves that come at you from every different angle. And some of them are really breaking and pretty heavy. You need to be hitting those straight on. So
Absolutely.
You know, and
lesson learned. That was lesson number one for me. You know, you got to get that nose right into that stuff.
Yeah, and so it's tricky. Sometimes waves are hitting you from two angles. So you got to figure out which one you're going to hit straight, and the other one you're going to have to navigate with some kind of low brace. I'm a regular footer, so I think the most solid spot for me to paddle is on my right side.
Okay.
Because that's always on my toe side.
Gotcha.
So very rarely am I ever paddling on my heel side or my back side while I'm going down the rapids.
Right.
I'm almost always on my toe hand side, and I do a pretty drastic draw at the beginning of the forward stroke to
Right.
keep my momentum, but also keep me turning in the right direction. So I'm not constantly turning to the left.
Gotcha.
If I utilize that bow draw at the beginning, it allows me to go to the right and really paddle in any direction I need to while navigating the rapids.
Great.
In that kind of staggered whitewater stance.
Right. That's great advice. Now, as far as like boards, I know you ride for Starboard. You know, there's a lot of boards out there that are designed for whitewater. What if someone was to walk into a paddleboard shop and say, you know something, man, I've got my flat water, I've got my Surf Tech, wave catcher for old mans. What am I going to look for as far as like a really dreamy whitewater board?
Well, I think the first thing is going to be durability.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're probably not going to want to take a carbon fiber composite board out
Yeah.
of the river. Certainly we do that when we go to places where we might park and play.
Right.
That's where we just park our cars, grab like the same surfboard we might use in the ocean.
Standing
go
wave,
hit
and
a
you're just
standing
grooving.
Wave, and you
Right.
can just snap on it with a light board. But for general river running and downstream whitewater skills, I think the inflatables kind of get the nod, and then you'd probably follow that up with plastic boards, which tend to be a lot heavier.
Right.
However, they're quite a bit cheaper.
Super bomber.
And they're super bomber, and that weight can actually help in the beginning a little bit. They're a little bit more even keeled going through the whitewater.
Right.
For a more high performance option, and certainly something you can learn on, is going to be your thicker inflatable boards. The new 6-inch thick
Right.
inflatable boards.
With
are
a lot
certainly-
of rockers, so those things are just pivoting. So you're really like just dream weaving on the whitewater. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you're cruising downstream breaking records. You're really trying to float with the river and then make critical maneuvers when you need to, make those little turns and stuff into the safe pockets in the river.
Right. And now, like the inflatable thing, I mean, when those things first came out, they were just really super flexy, nightmare, just worthless kind of boards. And I know you guys have put a lot of R&D into them.
Yeah.
Really, what makes the really dreamy inflatable? Like if you're shopping as far as structural integrity and rigidity.
Well, the first sign that's going to be really easy to tell a better inflatable from one that's of lesser quality is what PSI can that board handle.
There you go.
So you really want to get a board that can take up to 18 pounds of PSI. So
Gotcha.
that's going to be a lot different than a board that's only rated maybe from 7 to 12 PSI. And you're going to see a drastic price difference most likely.
Right.
You're also going to see a difference in maybe the fin configuration or what's available with the fins, deck rigging, EVA deck, whether it goes all the way to the tip and tail, which I
Right.
highly recommend for the river.
For sure.
You're spending a lot of time up on the front of the board, getting on and off the board. So having that tip to tail and what I call rail-to-rail EVA deck pad is very important. And a lot of times, you're paddling, you've got a pair of shoes on, and you're standing on the board in places you might not ever stand on a board, because
Right.
the river allows you to do some pretty neat stuff with the board.
Yeah, because you're kind of nose riding when you go through those shallows to get those fins out of the
Exactly,
water, and you're
yeah.
kind of like doing that, and yeah.
So I really think that the inflatables are nice in that respect. They're much lighter. They're less than half the weight of a plastic board might be. And then you've got the composite, and now we're starting to see some trick kind of painted composites with this super durable. It's almost like a bed liner for a truck. Or
Oh,
this
wow.
monster spray paint on stuff that we're seeing. That's pretty tough stuff. And then you've got the thermoform. So there's
Right.
a lot of different materials out there that actually do quite well in the rocky, very abusive environments. But you want to find something that has performance in whitewater. And that means having something with a bigger tail,
Right.
having something with more volume,
A little more rocker.
and more rocker.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great point. And something in the 11 to 9 foot range.
Oh, okay.
Probably going to be a great way to start as a downstream whitewater river running board.
Right. Now, how about locales? Like, I know you don't want to give out the Misto dream spots because you're kind of bogarting those yourself, but if you just go into a paddleboard store, grab yourself a board, and you want to head out Central Northern California, where would you head up?
Oh, I would probably head up to Oregon.
Because you're a hood boy, right?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of great water areas and rivers to paddle, and the easiest way to find those is to consult like the local kayak or whitewater shop,
Those guys have the beta for sure.
or stand-up paddleboard shop in your area. That if you know they're doing some whitewater and promoting that, they can tell you where to go, what's safe. They could test your leash to make sure it's safe, make sure you get the right equipment. But the American has a lot of great sections on it. The Sacramento River actually has there's over 300 miles of that river that are stand-up paddleable. And then you've got all kinds of stuff. Every mountain range from here basically down to Bakersfield is just a wonderland for whitewater. And it's truly, California is known as some of the best whitewater in the world. And I
Right
think
on.
it's a little bit more remote than some of the other places, but as time goes on, more and more paddlers are going to be checking out those runs. And,
I can see that. I mean, I see that future happening. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people making that leap.
yeah, for sure. So we're starting to see it really grow in the places where whitewater paddling is already very established with the kayak crowd, and these new whitewater parks that are coming up are like perfect places to learn the sport because they're very safe, much more so than a river in its natural state. So, but with all that said, whitewater stand-up's great, and we'll see it grow a lot more, just like we've seen the festival here at the Tahoe Nalu. I believe we have Chase
In the house.
on deck here. He's getting ready to talk a little bit about
Come
the
on over.
10-miler. And so
Yeah, come on over.
I think we have Andre actually.
Oh,
over
we
there
got a
with us.
live.
Yeah,
There we go.
There you go. A man with many tricks, right? Under his sleeve. So anyway, we're here with Chase Kosterlitz. I never get it right.
That's right. You got it.
Kosterlitz. Take a note. Alrighty. So you were just in the 10-mile long distance race. From our vantage point, it was pretty calm winds, not a lot of wake. But how was it out there?
Yeah, it was a fun race. It looks flat, but it's a bit rolly. There's a lot of boat wake, and it's not dead calm.
And so how was the competitiveness of the field? So who were you looking at there, and how was it?
Yeah, it was good. Jake Jensen, all the way from Australia, was here, and George Constead from Tahiti. So you got guys coming from
Kronstead.
Kronstead.
So today is a
Kronstead. I can't pronounce
pronunciation
anyone's-
lesson.
Yeah,
Right?
we're gonna get everyone's last name right. But yeah, so he was here, and you there's always other guys coming in. Jay Wild paddled outrigger. I'll have to talk to him about that. Get him on a standing up next time. But yeah, so definitely a competitive field.
So let's step aside here for a second and talk a little bit about the behind the scenes. So I just heard that you stepped out of a space shuttle into an Amazon trip, killed some piranhas, and tamed some crocodiles. Now you're here. So anyway, back to the real world. How was it? You've done a lot, and now here you are in Tahoe.
Yeah, I'm almost 3 months on the road. Did the whole European leg, 5 races there, then Maui races, and then got to go to Thailand for some board stuff, and that was really cool. And I got in last night, so I feel like I'm in the twilight zone right now.
That's right. You flew in and then you drove like quite a few hours, and some people
Yeah.
thought, well, maybe Chase is gonna, step aside on this one. But sure enough, you got in, and you can't pass on beautiful Tahoe, right? Even though we're at 6,000 feet altitude, but beautiful, huh?
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's funny. I was on a lake in Thailand, and it was okay, but there's kind of trash everywhere, and it was like more humid than I've ever been in. I'm from Florida, and it was like just terrible humidity. And then you come to a place like this, and it's
Really
just like
dry.
dry,
It's dry
but
heat.
It's dry heat, but it's like it's beautiful.
comfortable.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to take a shower every second. It's like,
No.
oh my goodness, I'm sweating again.
Exactly.
So what's next? What are we looking at? There is a relay race, and then getting ready for tomorrow's elite race, right?
Yeah, excited for that. Tomorrow they've decided to put all the money for the elite guys is tomorrow, so that should be interesting, and survivor format like they did last year. So close, tight racing. If you want to see something exciting, you're gonna be broadcasting it live, right?
That's
So,
the plan. As
yeah.
long as the Earth doesn't shift
No.
out of its orbit, we should be all right. So
Yeah, so you're gonna want to watch that because
That's right.
It'll be good.
so you guys stay tuned. Thanks a lot, Chase.
Sure.
Okay, hopefully you're gonna get some rest tonight and be all freshened up tomorrow. Just beautiful Lake Tahoe, everyone. We're here from Kings Beach in California, and I know you're jealous. I'm jealous of myself, actually, because this is just such a great day. So anyway, keep it up, and we'll see you later in the day in the relay race.
Cool. It's today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, later today. That's right. Later
I
today.
wanted to take a nap.
I think it is today, so maybe you do have. I think, what is it? It's about noon, so I think it's coming up. Yeah, any time.
All right.
You might want to grab something to eat.
All right.
All right, thanks, Chase, and
Andre.
keep it up, and see you later today.
All right. It's later this afternoon, man.
It is, man. It is. One,
I'm gonna get
two.
some lunch. You want anything?
If you can bring me something, that'll be awesome.
Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to. I don't have my.
You're watching the Quicksilver Tahoe Nalu Paddle Festival at Kings Beach in North Lake Tahoe, presented by Nature's Bakery. At Squaw Creek.
Break out your board trunks and your beach towels. Warm weather and Tahoe summer fun is here. In this episode of the Lake Tahoe Experience, we'll take a look at just a few of the fun activities